Hi, everyone. So many a times when we are writing the code, we need to run a block of code if a condition is true and maybe run a different set of actions or different block of code if the condition is false. And that's where conditional statements comes into picture. Now, in the conditional statement, we have if-else block. So if is a reserved word. After if, we have to give condition that we want to check. And if this condition is true, then the code that you write under this if block will execute. Code executes if condition is true. Now let's see this in action. So let's have two variables. A is equal to 20, B is equal to 100. And I want to basically print B is greater than A if B is greater than A, if that condition is true. So I will say if, then I'll give the condition. I want to check if B is greater than A. So B is greater than A. And then I want to print on the console, B is greater than A. Let's go ahead and run it. So it is printing B is greater than A. Why? Because this condition is true. What if this condition becomes false? It will not print this. Why? Because it is not going inside this if block. The condition is false. It is not going inside the if block. What if I have a statement here which says print hello? Now, these two lines, the first statement and the second statement, both are inside the if block. And when we run this, both the statements are not getting executed. Why? Because both are part of if block and this condition is false. So we are never stepping inside the if block. Let's make this condition true by changing the value to 20 here. And now the condition is true. It's printing B is greater than A and hello. Now you must have noticed that we are adding a space here. Space at the beginning of the line, the white space at the beginning of the line. Why are we doing that? So we add this space, or we call it indentation, to define the scope of the code block. So by adding this indentation, we are saying that these two statements belong to if block here. They are inside the if block. If I change the indentation of this, right, I remove the indentation from the second statement. Again, for when the condition is true, it is giving us the same output. But when the condition becomes false, now B is not greater than A. So we are not stepping inside the if block, but print here, it's outside of the if block. This is outside the if block. So if you are coming from other programming languages, you would know that to add the indentation or to define the scope of the code, you use curly brackets like this, right? If you're coming from C++ and Java, you would know that. But in the case of Python, we use this white space at the beginning of the line. So this is a part of if block. This is outside of the if block. So it doesn't matter whether the condition is true or false. This will run irrespective of whether A is greater than B or B is greater than A. Now, you must be wondering that how much space should I add? Are there any rules? There are no rules per se. You can go ahead and add as much space as you want here. That's fine. Now, let's add some more lines here in this if block. So I'll first add, so if B is greater than A, I want to add 100 to B. And then I want to print B. So these three lines here are now inside the if block. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. So right now, because this condition is false, we are not stepping. So none of the three lines are executed. It just prints hello because hello is outside of the if block. Now let's make this condition true by changing B to 100. Now we are stepping inside the code because this condition evaluates to the Boolean value true. It prints B is greater than A. Then are adding 100 with another 100 here. So it becomes 200. The new value of B is 200. And then we are printing 200 here. And finally, this hello gets printed. Now you must be wondering that, fine, I can add as much space, but do these three statements have to be aligned? Can I add more space for B here, the second statement here, maybe some more for print also, or like, can I have these not aligned or misaligned? The answer is no. Whatever indentation you are using for the first line, the same indentation you have to use for all the other lines in a given block. Misaligned indentation causes indentation error. It gives indentation error. Now, what if I want to do certain other tasks when B is not greater than A? Maybe I want to say B is not greater than A. So then we have the else block. Else block, we say that if the condition, the above condition is false, then the else block is executed. So we do not add any condition after the else block. What are we saying? That if the above condition is false, then the else block would be executed. So here the code executes if above condition, this condition I'm talking about, is false. So there is no, you cannot put a condition after else block. If you try, if after else block, sorry. If you try to do that after else keyword, if you try to put a condition, you will get an error, syntax error. So let's try having an else block also here. So else. And I'll say print B is not greater than A. Now let's execute it. So because B is greater than A, it is running this piece of code. It is not running the else block. Why? Because this condition is true. But what if we make this condition false? Now this block would be skipped. All these lines of code would be skipped. It will directly go here and print B is not greater than A. Can you have an else block without a if? No. You can have if, just if without an else, but else will be always with if. So you should have a if statement or if condition to have an else block also. Now, what if we have multiple conditions? You can have more than one conditions that you want to check. So there we can use elif led, if elif ladder. So let's try that also. If elif, elif. Also elif is accompanied with a if. You cannot have like a isolated or separate elif only. With if you can have elif. So elif, so it's spelled as ELIF. And then after elif, we have to give a condition. Just so we add a condition after elif. And if this condition is true, code executes if the condition is true. And we can have multiple elif blocks. You can, in one if else block, you can only have one if, one else, but you can have as many elif as you want. You would have, if you have 10 conditions, you can have 10 elif blocks. Okay, so maybe I'll just say condition 1 here. This is condition 1, this is condition 2, this is condition 3. Okay. So let's try elif now. So here we are checking if B is greater than A. Let's also check if B is less than A. And maybe if B is less than A, then we want to print B less than A, B less than A. And we would also like to maybe subtract something from A or B. Let's do this. A is equal to A multiplied by 2. Maybe that's what I want to do. If this condition is true. And then I'm going to go ahead and print A. And now there is one more condition here, which is B is equal to A, right? So there can be only three conditions. The B is greater than A, less than A, or equal to A. So because we have already covered these two conditions, if this is not true, B is not greater than A and B is not less than A, that it has to be equal to A. Maybe I can just say B is equal to A, and maybe I'll just go ahead and print A and B, A comma B, right? So what is going to happen for this code? Now here our A is 20, B is 1. So first it will check this condition. Is this condition true or false? This is false. So it will skip this particular block of code. It will not run this piece of code. It will then check this condition. Now this condition is true or false? This condition is true. B is less than A. So it will run these three lines here. It will print B less than A. It will multiply A with 2. So that is 40. It will print 40. And finally, this is outside the if-else block anyways. And this would else would be skipped. Why? Because this condition was true. Now let's change B to 100. Now let's run it. Now what just happened? This condition was true, right? 100 is greater than 20. So it's going to execute this and accordingly print it out here. But the question is, will it go and check this second condition? Will it check whether B is less than A or not? No, it will not. It will not check, because as soon as one of the conditions is true, it will run that block, all the statements inside that particular block, it will run, and then it will come out of the if-else block. It will not go ahead and check the other conditions. So if we were to write the same thing, but slightly differently, let's say, I just copy paste it, and maybe if I make it if, and here also maybe I can have a condition, if, and the condition is A is equal to B. Now this will give you similar answers. When you run this code, these two codes, they will give you the same output. But there is a difference. And the difference is that this is more efficient way of doing it. Why? Because we know as soon as B, if B is greater than A, it cannot be less than A or it cannot be equal to A. But here, even when the first condition, so here you have three separate if blocks. This is first if block, this is second if block, this is third if block. There we had just one if block, if else block. Here you have three if else block. So if the first condition is true, let's say, but still it is going to check the second condition. It's false, it will not do anything, it will not run this code, but it will check the second condition. And then the third as well. So if you ask me which is the better way to write this, obviously the former one, the first one is the better way. Because we would not want to unnecessarily check these conditions and take more time to execute the code. So that is if-else ladder. And you can have as many elif statements here as you want. So let's take one more quick example of this. So let's take an input from the user. Let's ask them to input the temperature. So for that, we have a function called input, and the message that we want to print, we can just type it in here, enter the temperature. So this is to take the input from the user. We can save it in the variable temp. Let me run and show it to you how it works. So this text that you have entered comes here, followed by this block here where you can key in your input. So let's say I say the temperature is 30 and enter. Now this temp variable here will hold the value 30. degrees Celsius maybe. Okay. So this is holding that value 30. But if you note, this is string. How do I know it's a string? Because it's enclosed in quotation. This is a string. If you don't trust me, we can just go ahead and check the type of this variable temp. It is a string data type. But we wanted a number, so we can use int function, which converts a int, which converts a string to an integer. But of course, the string has to be a number, right? A string of number, like we have in the case of temperature. You cannot go ahead and convert. So you can convert temp to a number. So if you see temp, we can convert to a number here. This is a number. Doesn't like it has got rid of these quotations. It is a number. But let's say you have a variable. Let me quickly show you this. Hi. And if you try to convert it to integer, can we convert it to integer? Is it feasible? No. It will give you error. The error says value error. Invalid literal for int with base 10. Of course, it cannot convert high. Nobody can convert high to a number. So yeah, but int will go ahead and convert this here to a number. And now what we want to do is we want to basically print different things based on the temperature. So we say if temperature is less than 10, we want to print it's freezing. Maybe we have 2, 3 more conditions. So we can use elif. Temp is less than 20. And we want to print it's cold. Not so bad, but still cold. Elif, I want to have another condition. Temp is less than 30. I'll say print nice weather. And let's say we also want to check if temp is greater than 30. Any value greater than or equal to 30, we want to say it's hot. So here what we have this if else block. We don't have an else statement here, but we have these multiple conditions that we are checking. Let's say I see the temperature is 70, it gives it's too hot. Now, I could have instead of using elif here, I could have also used else, and that would have also done the trick. With else, we don't give any condition. So with else, what are we saying? If all the above conditions are false, then print it's too hot. So if it is not less than 10, 20, or 30, it has to be greater than 30, and it will print it's hot. Okay. So that is how the if else works. Now, what if you want to check more things inside an if statement? So, we have checked something, you want to further check few more things, then how to go about doing that? So, for that, you have nested it. You can have a if block inside another if block. So, let's say we want to check the age of the person, and if so, maybe we want to take a age as an input from the person, and that person is above 18 years of age. We want to ask them whether you are citizen or not of in whichever country or not. And then if they say that they are the citizens, then we want to print you can vote. Otherwise, we can say no, you cannot vote. So how to do that? So let's create a variable age, and we are going to take the input from the user. They should be prompted to enter their age. So we'll say enter your age, colon, and we can convert it to integer because the way the input function works, whatever value you input, it is taken as a string. Even if you input a list, it will just enclose it within quotations to make it a string. We need to convert it to integer here. Then we check if age is greater than or equal to 18, colon. I would say input. So I want to basically take another input from them now. If their age is greater than 18, if their age is less than 18, I don't want to mind like asking them whether you are a citizen or not. But if their age is greater than 18, then I want to basically ask that question. So I'll ask, are you a citizen? You a citizen? And I expect them to respond in yes and no. String I'm passing here. And we'll save the output in a variable. Let's say citizen, calling the variable citizen. And now once the person has keyed in whether they are citizens or not, we will say if citizen dot. So maybe we can convert this yes and no that they have inputted to lowercase by using this inbuilt function lower is equal to. So we are using comparison operator here. We're checking if it is yes. We are going to go ahead and print you can vote, right? You are above 18 plus you are a citizen, you can vote. Else we want to print you must be citizen to vote. So we have this nested if else block. Now this line here belongs to this if block and this if else block also belongs to this if block. How do we know that? By looking at the indentation. You see all of these things are in the same line. This print statement here is part of this if block. So this is indented more as you can see. And this statement again here is part of this else block here. So let's go ahead and run it. It is asking for the age. Let's say I enter 10 years. So in that case, it should not run this if block. So let's just type a message. If the person is less than 18 years, we can just let them know why we are not allowing them to vote. We can say you are not or you are too young to vote. Young to vote. So now if I enter 10, it says you are too young to vote. If I enter 25, it will ask if you are a citizen or not. Let me enter yes with a capital Y. And still it converts it to lowercase, compares it whether this value is yes or not. If it is yes, it is typing you can vote. And if not, it would have given you must be citizen to vote. So once again, what is the syntax of if statement? So if followed by condition followed by colon. And then you have the indented block of code. So whatever belongs to this if block has to be properly indented. All the statements have to be properly indented. And all the statements within one block, the if block should align. Similarly, all the statements within elif block should also align. But it is not necessary that the statements which are, so let me just demonstrate that as well. So here we have although followed the same spacing in each of the block, which is okay, but we could have done something like this also. Because this elif block is separate from the if block. So now this is also fine. If I say temperature is 12, it says it's cold. But all the statements that we have within this elif block should follow the same indentation. So again, 12, and it's cold, and it's just printing these three dots as well. So all the lines, all the statements have to follow the same indentation here. So that was about the conditional statements. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you for watching.